everybody has seen. Well, maybe not. I ain't gonna speak for everybody. Did anybody get a chance to run the Chappelle special?
Synced it.
Synced it
Twice.
Okay.
Once.
I have not ran that quite yet.
Really?
Yeah,
Proper,
I mean,
I like that.
I'm busy. Things happen, and I don't get free time to actually just sit and consume sometimes.
You can't watch it with your daughter.
Exactly.
It's not family friendly.
Yeah.
What was you about to say?
Yeah, sure she can. Should be all right.
Yeah.
Well, the Netflix CEO came out and said that he's pretty much standing up behind Dave and not pulling it, and we're gonna rock with it on Netflix. Gonna keep it moving.
Good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Dave is an earner.
Dave definitely bringing
Dave
in.
is an earner.
They've stood behind Dave Chappelle. This ain't the first time. Remember when the Chappelle show was on Netflix?
Yeah,
and he wasn't getting paid.
Yeah.
They pulled it from the platform because Dave Chappelle is Dave Chappelle. He's in that position. So
this is probably my least favorite Dave stand up though.
This one is.
It's not as Sticks and Stones was a monster. It's hard to follow that.
I think the subject matter is what's him addressing certain things in it. It's what has people. Oh, it's the greatest special. Oh, he's all time great. He's the GOAT. He's surpassed. Like I'm seeing so much of that.
I think he already surpassed everybody a while ago. But
okay.
But this isn't.
This isn't the reason why.
Nah, not to me.
Let me ask you this. I'll come to you, Lone, first. How do you feel about the comparisons between how Boosie's been received for the things that he said versus how Dave's special has been received?
Dave seems like he tries to understand. Boosie just is like Boosie.
Okay.
I don't know, man. I don't know what else to say specifically.
It's different though,
unless you have a specific question. Like, to be honest,
without even seeing it, I kind of have an idea
as to how
to answer that.
Go ahead.
It's probably the delivery. It's the person that's actually saying it.
That's kind of what I said.
So you got Dave Chappelle, who can kind of elaborate, and even if it wasn't received as well as he wanted to be received, he can make it sound intelligent and from a point of view of somebody that's actually paying attention to what's going on, versus Boosie is just going to say exactly what's on his mind at that moment. And that's not a shot at Boosie, but it's kind of the same thing with Kanye West. Kanye West doesn't necessarily articulate his points exactly how he wants to say it, so it just comes out a certain way, and people receive it that way and try to interpret it. In this situation with Boosie says it exactly how he wants you to interpret it, but it's too raw for some people. Whereas with Dave Chappelle, and also Boosie's fan base, you don't really have a lot of rural America or white people that really listen to Boosie like that. Whereas Dave Chappelle has crossed over to where he has the black, the white, the Asian, you know what I'm saying? He has everybody that kind of pays attention to what's going on and are going to back him if they feel a certain way about it. Whereas
more elegant.
Yeah, Boosie doesn't have that luxury. And in the same token, it's not going to touch his fan base either.
Yeah.
I
don't know, man.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can dig that. I can agree with that. I feel like Dave gets such a huge pass across the board, though. Like, no matter what Dave is going to do, people are going to look at him as like it's a standard. Like, because Dave said it this way, and because Dave doesn't care, because Dave has means so much to so many different things, comedy, black culture,
hip hop culture,
all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
A lot of what he says is kind of law. And so he's kind of going up against, and his whole special his narrative was against LGBTQ. Did I say that right? I think so. But it's like kind of what he kind of outlined in the whole thing was, stuff can happen over here, but if you go against this, then you're going to catch the backlash. And I don't know.
The irony in that is
there's truth in a lot of what he said, but I don't know.
I mean, the irony is, if you think about it, look at Gruden. The reaction to the first email, and then everything else came out. It was different, and it triggered it. Got to go.
Yeah,
it kind of goes in line with what Dave was talking about. But he's brilliant at how he does it. To Terry's point about presentation, I mean, the dude is a genius in terms of being a comedian. So the way he words things and things and how his presentation is flawless, like it works. You end up laughing, and it might be an uncomfortable topic or whatever, but the way he does it, it just hits.
But when has Dave not given you an uncomfortable commentary about things? Even when he did his own did the Chappelle show back in the day, he literally canceled himself based on how it was being received. He stated that someone laughed a certain way and he wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
So he decided to kind of let me shy away from this type of comedy because I don't like the way that they're laughing at this comedy.
Right.
That I'm pretty much presenting to you about my people.
Yeah.
He didn't like that laughter, so he canceled himself essentially. So now that he's canceled himself, I mean, he's in a position where he doesn't care if he gets canceled.
Oh, he definitely doesn't care
because he did it to himself.
Yeah.
And he didn't even reinvent himself. He took a pause from the Limelight Hollywood, did whatever he had to do to kind of heal, and then slowly started to come back.
But to Jay Moore's point, he's untouchable. He can't be canceled.
Oh, no.
Teflon at this point.
See, this is the thing about Dave Chappelle. Like, just like Terry said, if you've been paying attention, you're actually a fan of Dave Chappelle. Even go back to the Def Jam days, his comedy has always been about people making people a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And the problem, I don't want to say a problem, but at one point went from his hardcore fan base. Like I've known Dave Chappelle, like I said, from Def Jam. I'm talking about when I was a teenager and been a fan of this dude, all the way through doing like Terrible Show Buddies on ABC, you know, Robin Hood Men in Tights, and then Killing Them Softly is what really said, okay, this is the guy. And that's like,
that was cold. Yeah.
But once again, you go back and watch that. There's a lot of things that make people that are uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I cried the first time. I cried laughing the first time I watched that.
But this is the thing. A lot of people who call themselves Dave Chappelle fans now, they're the people who got on board when they're the people who would show up to his shows and just yell from the fifth row, "I'm Rick James, bitch." Like those are people who consider themselves Dave Chappelle fans. You know what I'm saying?
05 Red August.
But you got to understand, like, those people, they really don't, they're not really Dave Chappelle fans. They're there for the spectacle, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so, look, I saw Dave Chappelle when he came to Indianapolis. This had to be about 5 years ago now. And there are people who had paid their money who got up and walked out. That's the Dave Chappelle.
You're doing your job.
That's the Dave Chappelle. Like there are other comedians like Richard Pryor was known for that. The guy Patrice O'Neal was known for that.
Man,
like people, he always said that, like, look, I want some people to love it, some people to be indifferent, and then some people to be horrified at what I say.
Red Fox.
That's what it is to be that kind of comedian. And you got to understand when he talked about this. He said, look, y'all want to talk about the stands you're taking? I walked away from $50 million.
Yeah.
Okay. I literally told Hollywood, I'm not afraid to die. That's basically what it is when they say, we're going to give you the keys to the kingdom. Here's $50 million. Now go ahead and sell our dope. And then he says, you know what? I'm good. You know, just like when he said the thing about how all the women, they thought they were doing something when they showed up to the Golden Globes wearing all black. It was like, what? What is, you know, the analogies he made, I'm not gonna ruin his jokes for people who didn't say it, but like, a lot of the people who are critical of this special, I'm like, oh, I can tell you probably watched the first 30 minutes of it, got offended, turned it off, and then created your opinion. You didn't watch all the way to the end. You know, so I'm just saying, you know, and I think I've said this on this show before. You know, as far as the queer community, who I feel like I've had more conversations with probably, you know, my gay homies and people in the transgender community than most. And I will say this, you know, and I posed this question to them directly. I said, do you want to be equal or do you want to be special? Because if you want to be special, like, I'll treat everybody equal. I ain't gonna treat nobody special. And I think that's the thing with Dave Chappelle. They thought, once again, I'm the Rick James. They thought that I'm the Rick James. I'm not gonna say it again.
Yeah.
They thought that guy was gonna treat them special.
Yeah.
And he just treats them the same as he treats everybody. If you like, look, I was lightweight offended at how he, you know, the stuff he said about Martin Luther King. But at the same time, I understood the joke, and I was like, all right, I'm not going to get offended about that. Look, he said, here is a devout Muslim who who said space Jews, 3 times?
At least 3 or 4 times.
And you know what? Because everybody else at this point, they'd be like, all right, we got to get these jokes. Right now, I feel like the queer community, because I remember when Tracy Morgan got in some trouble. Now I can understand that because he said if his son ever came home and he was gay, he would have to kill him. You can't do that. That's a bridge too far.
Notice how he's not canceled anymore.
Yeah.
Tough.
Well, because once again, he apologized to the machine. He realized, okay, I still got to sell this dope.
And it wasn't no Gruden apology.
No,
he apologized.
He went on Ellen.
Yeah, he apologized.
Was out here doing he basically had to go on an apology tour. But with Dave, he's giving you the same work that he gives everybody else. And the thing is, why it seemed like he was too much on it, but you got to realize this has affected his real life. People are coming up to him making assumptions about who he is as a person that aren't true. And the thing is, when he has, a transgender person that he stood up for and it stood up for him, and then those same people who are quote unquote on the cancel culture train bully this person. And I'm not going to, like I said, he even says in the special, I'm not going to ruin it. But, for those of you who've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Who, it was something very tragic that happened. What is your real goal here? Do you want to be equal or do you want to be special? Because I think a lot of people are upset at this point with why Dave is getting so much love is because it's like, we're tired of walking around with kid gloves around these people. We don't mean any harm to them, but they can get these jokes just like anybody else.
Shannon Sharp said the exact same thing on Undisputed this morning about, to Jay Moore's point, about special. We posed a special question versus, like what he was talking about. Mm-hmm. Shannon Sharp said the exact same thing, obviously, different in his format for the show, but he was on the exact same thing that you just said this morning. And if you go on YouTube and look at the comments for Undisputed, how people come in and give us comments on TikTok or YouTube or whatever, usually mixed. But I saw a lot of people that were actually for what Shannon was saying, and he echoed everything that you just said. It's like the word special. I saw that word in the comments. It's crazy that you said that. Like, it literally was on there.
Yeah, I did. I don't have cable, so I don't know.
I'll be watching it streaming on YouTube.
But I think
that's
a lot
real though. That's
real.
real.
Unfortunately, I think I don't know if y'all remember this, but like there was one of the members of the transgender community, and they were at a GameStop, and okay, it looked like a dude. And I'm sorry, like I said, you got to understand, this is new to a lot of people, including myself, to where we got to try to figure these things
100%.
out. Get the pronouns right.
I'll be the first to tell you.
I don't mean no harm if I was introduced to you as a woman and now you identify as a man. I'm doing the best I can.
Agreed.
But
I don't care what nobody said. That video was funny.
But yeah, when that dude is like, call me ma'am. I'm sorry. I couldn't. That was funny.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Would you say, Terry, you couldn't take that?
Because the dude,
it's funny.
The dude at GameStop, he probably makes $9 an hour.
Yeah.
He said, "I'm sorry, sir. I mean, man."
He's trying to do the best he can. He probably just want to hurry up and close the store.
Yeah.
And you in there wilding out. He didn't sign up for this.
He definitely didn't sign up for that. Nah, 100%.
The only thing that I'll say kind of counter to what you said is that I think it's one thing to make jokes about the demographic that you're a part of.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As opposed to something that you aren't a part of.
And there's a but. And
with that, it's, to me, I maybe this is just my perspective. I would see it as if I would go out and do comedy and kind of joke about black related issues as if I was black and as if those things affected me. Because that could still be painful for people that are viewing that from a white person that is saying those type of jokes, even though I don't mean harm by it. I just mean it in a comedic realm.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have to go through the pain that a transgender person or somebody from that community goes through,
mm-hmm.
and I make joke of it lightly, some people are going to look at that and be like, they might laugh with you, but at the same time, it's kind of minimizing the pain a little bit, in my opinion.
If you watch the special
too,
go ahead.
But
Terry.
I can dig that too. But in the same token, to to the whole point of not feeling special. Comedians literally do that to every race. I don't know any mainstream comedian that hasn't said one joke about another race, whether it was off put or way too far left field. They kind of tinker on that fence line, so to speak.
But isn't there a significant difference from a white person telling a joke that is insensitive towards the black community versus a black person saying something insensitive towards the white community?
You can say a joke that
there's like
isn't
power dynamics there,
well,
right?
that's true, but in the same token, you can say a joke that can be aimed at a certain race or demographic, but it doesn't have to be racist, so to speak. So like even with Dave Chappelle, his whole commentary, well, not whole commentary, but a lot of it was joking about black people.
Yeah.
So say
Which
you go do a show, do a show in Montana, your whole audience is white, and you're saying these jokes, and some people are laughing with you, and some people are laughing at you,
right?
Because they view it as a different type of funny. So you have to take it on both ends of the spectrum, and not to be, like he was saying, like Jay Moore said, not to be included as special. I mean, there's black transgender people too.
Yeah, but I guess my only argument to that is that he isn't. Right.
No, he's not.
But at the same time, Dave, he spelled it out. First of all, he's like, first of all, I'm jealous of the progress you all have made as far as then.
Like I said, he made lots of facts.
In the second half, he's like, y'all don't realize when I tie all these things together, I'm not talking about y'all. I'm talking about white people.
Yep.
You know, and the thing is, I think everything is lost because we just get into the Olympics of Twitter wokeness, and
Absolutely.
like when he said, there were people who were actually very upset when he said Twitter is not a real place.
Dog, what you just with what you just said,
that's people's whole identity is their retweets and their likes, and they're like, how are you gonna say Twitter's not a real place?
Real quick,
go ahead, bro.
What I want to point out too is the whole thing about everybody is accepted now. A lot of that has to do with in terms of people being gay, straight, the LGBTQ community, and this is nothing against them, but it's a lot easier for them to maneuver and to kind of get together and be against something because it's more than one race. It's not pointed at, oh, these are just black people. These are all, every race in the planet. You have some gays or transgender or whatever, you know what I'm saying, in that community. And what's interesting about that is all this time, like as far as being black is concerned, you know, it's always been taboo or it's cool to say this about them. But now, anytime with them, since there's so many that's included in that group, they all come to bat for each other. I like that in a sense, but in the same token, it's not on the same playing field as being what word did you use before?
Special.
Yeah.
It's not. It's like you're being special because everybody's grouped into this same group versus just being one color per se. I don't know.
Well, like whenever, you know, anytime, you know, black people just get what, you know, just basic human rights, they'd be like, oh, why we got to treat them special? Like that's been our
Facts.
A lot of our journey was like, oh, why they get to vote? They think that's us being treated special. Yeah. Like, you know, it's been, and once again, that's where the jealousy, that's where some of the conflict, that's where it's like I said, I don't believe where Dave is coming from in this special or the last was actually, or the special before that, was actually coming from a malicious place.
No, I don't either.
But at the same time, I am not of the transgender community. Like I said,
for sure.
I just know I've had those conversations because I said, look, is what I'm saying wrong? Like that's where I had to get clearance. Like, you know, when you said, you know, the Q word, you know, I had to talk to people in that community to feel, because I remember when I was a kid, unfortunately, we had it was a slur. It was a slur.
Yes.
There was a gang called 𝗲𝗲, and since it was using and derived, I'm not going to repeat it in that way.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. But so like, I didn't know until maybe a year ago that like me saying the queer community is not considered a slur. But you know what? It might be different on the West Coast. I don't know. There might be somebody listening in California be like, no, you can't say that.
Literally included in the acronym.
Yeah. So That's
Good
where,
point.
yeah.
Good
So,
point.
but maybe me saying it makes someone feel some type of way.
But what you initially said about when you drew the comparison of the white comedian versus the black content, but you talked about how it may be perceived differently. If you watch this special, you'll see the pans, the cutaways. Everybody wasn't laughing.
No, not everybody
on some of those.
No,
and
for
that's
sure.
the
And that's
first
how
thing that
every
jumped.
Dave Chappelle show is.
Exactly, but to his point, that just highlights what you're talking about. Everybody wasn't laughing on some of those
And people
those
might
cutaway
forget
shots.
too that even during the Dave Chappelle time, when he would have his shows, he would have commentary after the show.
True.
To gauge people, to see how did this joke hit you? How did this affect you?
Right.
Let me know how you feel about that.
Crowdsourcing.
And I remember it was one episode where the white guy stood up and was like, I don't see watermelon as a racist fruit. It's delicious. I love watermelon. It just had something to do with that commentary that he was saying. And I mean, Dave has been known for this his whole career.
Go ahead, Lona, wrap it up on this one so we can.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I don't think Dave meant anything negative by it. I think he tried his best to talk about the subject in a way that I think he tried to talk about it eloquently.
Yeah.
And he tried to address things from a certain perspective. I think he did a good job with everything. But it doesn't mean, like, it's still, at the same time, with all that being said, it still doesn't mean that everything that he said was necessarily necessary. And, part of it to me kind of seemed a little bit, I don't want to say forced. I don't know the right word for it. I almost want to say bad taste a little bit, but I see what he was trying to do. He's a comedian. In general, I respect what Dave tries to do, and people that are trying to push boundaries. I feel like he's bringing the conversation. Again, I get it that it could be hurtful for people in that community, right? But at the same time, I feel like it was his attempt to, whether he failed or succeeded, to try to broaden the conversation around it.
It's a slippery slope, but conversation is, to me, is good.
I mean, he has a lot of responsibility for his platform.
100%.
So,
If you've enjoyed this segment of the New Old Heads podcast, make sure you join our live show every Tuesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern on twitch.tv/newoldheads. You can also catch playback of all of our shows on any podcast app and youtube.com/newoldheads network. And go to newoldheads.com/community to join our Discord.